Hello from gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and you're very welcome to the first garden tour of the season. Now it's springtime, we're in the middle of March, St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, and the garden is waking up nicely to what's ahead of it for the summer. I've started the work going around the garden, clearing back and everything, and I've noticed a lot of really gorgeous little spring things popping up, which I want to share with you today. So come with me and let's have a look at Douentza Garden in March. And I guess a good place to start is right here at this little path, this windy path that is in a shady spot in the garden with lots of spring bulbs underneath. And Katsuki is going to model the garden, as you can see, as we walk around. She is very graceful though. She does very little damage in terms of disturbing plants. And the hyacinths are up, I'm very happy to announce. Katsuki seems to like to sit just there in that position, and you can see she's completely ignoring us with her head turned away. But she does look kind of sweet in there among the hyacinths. And these hyacinths, of course, are ones that I first of all bought forced to grow in the house in a glass, and after they finished blooming I planted them out in the garden, and they've just gone on to do great things since then. And the first of the double daffodils are just beginning to open, and you're going to have to excuse me, but I really do love double flowers, and daffodils are no exception, and I absolutely love the white and yellow ones. Now these are ones that have been in the ground for such a very long time, so long I can't even remember what their name was, and it was before I had my plant database, so I have no record of what they're called at all, but I do love them. And just taking a little glance across this border, which you can see is just mostly bare soil at the moment, but we do have the evergreen of some irises, and we do have some Muscari coming. And these little fellas here are called Muscari. Very, very easy to grow, and they spread around a good bit, so you know, once you put them down, I think you're going to have them forever. And let's just take a little look over here where Katsuki is pretending to be a tiger. Can you see her in there? Hey Katsuki, Katsuki, Katsuki. She's playing hide and seek behind the tree. Yes. Okay, she doesn't seem to want to do a lot at the moment, so what we probably need to do is just ignore her, and then she'll, oh, there goes the tail, then she'll join us. But if we just look over here to the other side, where we have quite a bit of just plain earth, there she goes, and it looks like there's not a whole lot going on, but I do want to show you my trilliums. And over here we have the Trillium that I moved last summer. You will have seen me do it in the quarantine video I made. I think it was April I moved it. But when I moved these Trilliums, I managed to slice the rhizome of one of them in half. And that is the one over there on the left. So as you can see, despite me slicing the rhizome, it has managed to survive and is doing fine. It doesn't look like it's going to flower this year, but that's okay because it's going to be okay, and the one on the right is going to flower. And that sticky uppy bit there in the middle on top of the gorgeously speckled leaves is going to be the flower, so I'm really looking forward to that, because for once I'm going to be able to see these flowers properly. Now it may seem that there is not a whole lot going on here in front, but if we look very, very closely, yes, right there, And here we have one of my Sanguinaria just popping up and getting ready to strut its stuff. So very soon this whole border is going to be awash with beautiful double white flowers. And we'll just continue on here a little bit, and as we're doing so I will put up very soon the map I made last year of the garden so that you can see exactly where we are. And we have plenty of one of my favourite primulas down here, the purple one called Crousse. And here we have one enormous clump of it. And I just love this primrose. Yes, it's double, but also it has very good leaves that hold themselves up well, and the flowers don't fade with the weather. So at this time of year a lot of primroses have very delicate petals, and if it's rainy and windy and all that they go brown, but not this one. And the purple flowers, they have slight white markings on the very tips, and well, I just think it's a very attractive feature. Isn't it interesting how this one seems to be bicoloured? I don't know if it's to do with temperature or what exactly, but these flowers here are coming to the end of their reign, and you can see that the inside has gone really quite blue, whereas the outside it's a lighter purple, and it looks very nice, I think. So we have just come from over there. That path is where we walked down, and just before we go and explore the section to the right, I just thought I would spend a few minutes here having a look at these glory of the snow. And these beautiful little blue flowers are called glory of the snow because they're very, very hardy and they can come up even through the snow. They're from eastern Turkey and they just do so well to the environment in my garden here in Ireland. And for anyone who saw last year's series, A Year in the Life of a Border, you'll remember that the March episode of that series featured this Chionodoxa very, very strongly, because this is also in that green border that we featured in A Year in the Life of a Border, and it really brightened up the whole border in March, and it's doing a really good job over here too. Last year I lifted and divided some bearded irises, including the ones here at the front, and I moved them and put them here, and I was a little bit worried that I was going to disturb the Chionodoxa, the glory of the snow, because when the bulbs are dormant in summer it's very easy to mess them up, to destroy them, but I seem to have done all right. So now, just swinging about over here, we will go and have a look at the hyacinth bulbs that I planted out last autumn. And here is that spot where I planted the hyacinths. But before we go in for a close-up look, let's just have a look at this tree above, which is the ornamental purple plum, and it's just coming into flower. Well, we do have a few blooms, but not so many so far. In fact, the number of blooms is quite scant, and I don't think it's going to flower very much this year. Some trees are just like that. One year you get a glorious flowering, and then another year, for no reason in particular, it just has a very scant flowering. And if we look closely at the tree, you can see that there is a lot of likeness on it, which is this little plant here. And this is a good sign, because this will only grow in places where the air is pure. So I'm going to take that as a compliment. And down here at ground level, you can see my hyacinths just beginning to poke up. And notice how far behind these are compared to the ones that have been in the ground for a few years. But they're coming up nicely with those strong flower spikes, and you can really see the definition of the flowers already, which is just great. And we have a little mix here with the hyacinths. We have Corydalis, which is that plant there on the left, and more of the glory of the snow on the right. And I do think there's a little primrose right there in the middle. Okay, so we're going to leave behind that section of the garden with the hyacinths, newly planted hyacinths, and the glory of the snow. And just panning over here, that's the little path that we came up. And in just a minute, we are going to go and walk down there beyond that path. But before we do that, I want to show you over here. And here we have the area behind the stone table, and there it is, the stone table, looking quite bare at the moment. So just there is where I have a glorious clump of Alstroemeria normally. And last autumn we planted alliums through the Alstroemeria, so I can't wait until they come up. They're a bit further behind than the hyacinths, but we'll get on to that in a moment. And we completely zoomed past these little primroses, and we really shouldn't have done because they are gorgeous. And these came to me many years ago from a friend in Limerick, and when I went to visit her, she was on a high with sowing primrose seeds. She'd bought a lot from Barnhaven, the company in France that specialises in primroses, and she gave me lots, and I was very interested in certain ones, named varieties in particular, but she pressed this little double on me and said, you have to take that one. And do you know what? Of all of those lovely varieties that she gave me that day, I don't think I have any of them left, but I do have this little yellow double, and it has gone on to do so well, and it's been divided, and as you can see, it is really clumping up and spreading out in this part of the garden. So it's done so well. And this one here at the front is a named variety, and I want to show you something. So let me just pick one of the flowers that I might show you up close. And as you can see, there are green calyxes down there, kind of hugging the plant and holding it up. And that kind of formation in a primrose has the term Jack in the Pulpit. So these are Jack in the Pulpit group primroses. And I think it's just a gorgeous little detail. And over here we have the stone table, although we haven't yet had breakfast or lunch or anything outdoors this year. It's been a bit too cold, but soon it's going to happen. And if you're wondering, those two palm trees just there behind it, they're called Trachycarpus fortunei, and I cover them in quite a bit of depth in my top 10 trees video, which came out quite recently. So if you want to hear more about them and how to grow them, then do check out that video. And the sun is beginning to dip a little bit now, so I think I'm going to have to hurry up a bit with this garden tour, or we're not going to get to see what I wanted to show you. But the tulips, yes, the tulips! Oh, listen here, I forgot to show you the plants I've been moving. And right there we have Podophyllum pleianthemum, a fabulous foliage plant that was completely hidden where I had it before. So I dug it up and I put it in here where it is going to look amazing. And here's just a little tip, because borders do evolve over time. And when I first planted up this border, it was very much full sun, and I planted lots of phlox and plants like that that love full sun. But over time, as it's matured, the trees have filled in and the phlox stopped flowering. So it's time to rejig. And speaking of trees, right in here we have my son Joshua's birth tree, and this is Acer rufinerve, the one in there, which doesn't yet have any leaves on, but it does have a lovely trunk. Another great tree, or perhaps it's a shrub, is this glorious Viburnum. It's evergreen and it holds on to its leaves for a very long time, but they have a lot of character. Looks absolutely superb in winter. It is vigorous, but the leaves are gorgeous, and the underside is very soft and tactile too. Another shrub back here is this little rhododendron that has never flowered but has gorgeous furry leaves. It really has to be an indication that I've been doing YouTube for too long, because I remember buying this shrub when I was in Kerry one year and making a video about it. And well, yeah, even though it hasn't flowered, I must look into why. It certainly looks great back here. Okay, so we're leaving that section behind, but just before we do, I have 2 points of interest. One is on the left, where I have tulips to show you, and one is on the right, where we cannot forget to have a look at that Euphorbia. So as you can see, I have lots and lots and lots of tulips coming up here. Myself and my daughter planted them last autumn, and I cannot wait for them to be in flower. It's going to be a fabulous display. I have a lot of hydrangeas and they take a lot of time to prune, and I have started on either end. So I've pruned that one there on the right and the next one beside it, and I haven't got to the ones in the middle yet. Well, I just adore euphorbias, and this one here is really up there as one of my favourites. It's one of my favourite foliage plants as well, and as you can see, it's about to flower. It has lots and lots of those deep red heads, and you can see the acid green flowers just peeping out from inside. A really gorgeous plant that I can see is spreading nicely, and I'm very happy it's spreading nicely. In fact, I saw a couple of shoots popping up around, I guess, seedlings, and I'm going to pot them up and transfer them elsewhere in the garden. And leaving aside the Euphorbia and progressing down here, I want to show you one of the nicest ferns you're ever likely to see. Isn't this a cracker? Perfectly hardy for me, and just seems really, really happy. And of course, the unfurling of fern fronds has got to be one of the highlights of spring. With the tulips, we have a rhododendron, and this is actually a species rhododendron. I think the only species rhododendron I have in the garden. Rhododendron barbatum, which I bought for its bark, because eventually this tree will get the most gorgeous peeling bark. But as a bonus, it has these beautiful red flowers. And it does seem to be flowering quite lopsidedly for me this year for some reason. At its feet, besides the tulips we just had a look at, we also have the black bearded iris that you saw me dividing last summer. And here's hoping for a magnificent flowering this summer. Further along, we have the geranium I divided. There's one bit of the clump and there's the other bit of the clump. Right there. Pulmonaria and anemone blanda looking really good at the moment, and I love anemone blanda. It's one of these sweet little things like the glory of the snow that you need to have lots of, and in spring they just give you such a kick seeing them there doing their thing. And to think that something so tiny and delicate looking can actually be so tough and deal with the Irish weather and with the snow and with the frost and with the abuse, and just reward us every year by coming back. I think that's just one of the great things about gardening. And just beside we have the Acacia Thor, which also featured in one of my favourite foliage plants video. And here we have its cute little false flowers, not real flowers at all. But this is a plant that I divided, and I don't know if I can show you, but if we turn to the right there, we can see more. And you need to look closely for this, but if you look closely, you can see that it is in a variety of places there behind, just poking up now. So in a few years, I'm going to have a magnificent display. And just on the right, we have Magnolia Star Wars, which is budding up nicely, a great magnolia tree, which I featured in my top 10 trees of last year just very recently. And that's where we were, just over there. That's where we walked down, and just swinging around to show you this border here, which I fondly call the boggart bed. And this is the other side, I guess the left hand side of the path that we walked down first off. So there's the path just there. And as you can see with this border, it is full of tulips that I planted last autumn. So these were some of the 500 that I bought and planted out after I made that tulip video, and it's going to be super. Okay, before we finish here, I just have to show you my hellebores. And the sun is fading very fast now, which means I need to be quick to show you the hellebores, but it's probably a good time to catch them because the sun is behind them. And it seems it's not just me who loves the hellebores. I hear a very buzzy bee doing its work at the moment. Do you see him down there? He's gone into one of the flowers somewhere down there. There he is. Off you go. Anyway, hellebores, as we know, are also known as the Lenten rose, and they are tough little plants that flower at this time of year, but you do have to remove the leaves, and that is one of the jobs that brings me out to the garden first thing in spring. And I've taken off the leaves, and then you can see the flowers, but they're gorgeous and they really are worth going to some trouble for. Having said that, taking off the leaves really isn't a chore at all, because I always find that by the end of the winter I'm just dying to get out and do a little bit in the garden. So to go out there and get my hands in the soil and cut back a few leaves, no heavy duty weeding, that is really a great job to do. And the hellebores then just reward you with these amazing flowers. Nice clump of hyacinth here. I've planted just blue hyacinths in with my hellebores, and I think it complements the pink of the flowers very nicely. And that brings me to the end of this March garden tour, which I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're enjoying your garden. And if you haven't gotten out yet, I hope this video might inspire you to do so. There's lots to see, lots to do out there, and lots to enjoy. Thank you as always for spending your time with me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.